Tomorrow, there will be no shortage of volunteers, no shortage of patriots.
Call of Duty, a beloved franchise that edges closer to becoming a memory, is proving to no longer be the powerhouse and staple in gaming. For years, Call of Duty has been a consistent machine, releasing a title basically every year, and despite some titles receiving backlash, have been played by millions and cemented a place in hearts of many. Real quick before I go on, there will be credit given down in the descriptions, and throughout the video there are different labeled sections if you want to skip ahead or need to go back. Back to it. As we look onto the nature of the game today, many would agree that Call of Duty is not in the same place it has been for the many years that it was. We must ask, where did Call of Duty go wrong? Before anything, we must look at the state Call of Duty is in now and what's making it different than ever before. Since 2019, we've seen the release of a new generation of Call of Duty with Modern Warfare, Black Ops, and Vanguard. Modern Warfare and Black Ops both being rebooted versions of our fan favorite games in the series.
We get dirty, and the world stays clean. That's the mission.
We've seen quality in these campaigns such as Modern Warfare and Black Ops despite a few hiccups.
I'm a goddamn onion, Mason. You should know that. You can't peel me!
Vanguard, while providing a different cast of characters, has disappointed many and has disappointed me. It slaps history in the face and makes for a cheesy story, and although disappointing, it shouldn't be a deal breaker for a Call of Duty game. But what is the biggest deal breaker is the online experience within multiplayer and the right hand man being its side mode. Looking at our recent game in Vanguard, many have abandoned it and either moved on to other games or gone back to older titles such as 2019's Modern Warfare. It's a game that is littered with bugs, broken mechanics, broken weapon balancing, and a lack of care for the community. Even with the lack of care for the community in other games, we've at least seen consistent updates pushed out, but rather this time, it seems the developers have abandoned ship on Vanguard. We have seen bugs since the beginning remain in the game, guns that need balancing remain broken for an eternity, and barely anything ever new. They are pushing out the bare minimum that they are required to create for new seasons. The game has potential, and was released with a good chunk of content for multiplayer with loads of guns, maps, and modes to satisfy an average Call of Duty player. A lot of it didn't matter, and left Vanguard in a barren wasteland waiting to completely die. Usually with a dissatisfied multiplayer, we have hopes in a mode like Zombies where it can take the mantle of carrying the game, but this year, it has fallen harder than any other mode has ever fallen in Call of Duty. With such high hopes, we've seen Zombies completely transform, bearing its popular identity into the ground. Luckily for Call of Duty, it has another shot at proving itself with its most recent stake in the Battle Royale genre with Warzone. Warzone being released in 2020 has proven to suffice as an addition to the popular list of Battle Royale games. As time moved on, it has reached a state of exhaustion where people are disappointed and remembering the old days of Warzone. The mode itself has carried attention away from what made Call of Duty a popular series in the first place. It leaves us to question the heart of the series, which lies directly within us, the community. Abandoned, tainted, forgotten. I believe that's how the community feels majority of the time. Disappointment is almost expected with COD that the bar for expectations have been set embarrassingly low. You will often run into the same players from previous days because the player count has gotten incredibly low compared to previous years, and a lot of people play to just play. Whether that is nostalgia, they're new to the series, or whatever. But not a lot have gotten stuck in that limbo. There's almost nothing for people to come together for, and the community has started to get numb to how things are. If we take a look at the Zombies community, Vanguard completely shifted how Zombies works and should have never even given us a Zombies mode in the first place. I mean, no wonder weapons until months into launch, no round-based Zombies map, boring story and characters. But I mean, at least we got this gem from Mr. Waffle Waffles. Memes aside, the Zombies community usually has to wait years in between games before they actually get new Zombies content. This year it has been completely ruined and left a stain in one of the best gaming communities out there. It's something that can permanently affect a smaller community that relies on this content. And it hasn't always been like this. And a lot would imply that the reason it has changed is because we have grown up. But I would have to strongly disagree with that. Developing a game is a work of art. They require passionate people with creative ideas. A big reason why Call of Duty used to be so special is because every year the developers were given the keys to make a stellar game for the community and something they could be proud of themselves. Everyone was winning. The developers were less restricted and happier. The publishers got loads of money, and we got a place full of memories and jitters every time we booted up that game. Without passion, no one cares enough, and we're just building the basics for a COD game. The bare minimum. I think if we look at the older Modern Warfare and Black Ops games, the first one in their own series were top of the line and at the time, hard to beat. I mean, if you were tasked with building a better game than Black Ops 1 or Modern Warfare, how would you do that? Modern Warfare was only like the biggest breakout game that defined the COD formula for the whole series. Shouldn't be too hard to top. Black Ops 1 was only a game that had it all within a fan favorite story, best side mode in zombies, and a multiplayer that innovated off of Modern Warfare. I think if we look into the perspective of the developers, I will have to bet a lot of them were happy seeing the feedback their creations were getting. It could only fuel them to go above and beyond that because they know they can, or at least they were going to try despite the added pressure. And passion will do that. It will motivate the best of us to go out there and dump our creativity all over something. Even the games that received negative attention like Ghost and Advanced Warfare, you can see the passion behind the work of these games. Passion was dumped into it whether we liked the finished product or not, and that was okay. It was okay to fail. It tells creators what roads to not go down again. The important bit is that they were trying, innovating, and trying to top their previous games to keep things fresh for us. And we must appreciate that. Because of that passion, we were able to get the next piece to our puzzle. When dipping our toes in history, we must make sure not to be blinded by nostalgia, but we must look at what made us feel good when playing these games. Community is the heart of any game, and with a good game comes a community of gamers who share interests. It creates many opportunities for bonding and creating friendships almost any match you play. Lobbies full of mics, people trash talking, firing up the competition, and sessions to grind for hours with friends. The atmosphere was there, and I doubt there was a day where players weren't excited to hop on the game. You had a bad day? Hop on COD. Game with the buddies. Get on YouTube and watch creators doing wacky and cool stuff. The possibilities were there, and the community was thriving. It created a safe space. Regardless of the toxic lobbies, it was comforting, in a sense. And I guess that's hard to explain, how a game full of toxic lobbies feels comforting, but I know there are a few who could explain that better for me. And there were options. You had the esports world, custom games, public matches, zombies with a story, an endless fight for survival, and a memorable campaign. And they were all populated for a reason. Take a look at today. What is still there and cared for? Esports and campaign is the closest thing I can think of that remains somewhat consistent. For those who have never experienced old Call of Duty, let me tell you what went through our heads almost every day on the game. You'd wake up randomly. Rather than going back to bed, your brain convinces you to hop on and grind out the game. You're thinking of getting those extra levels to prestige and unlocking those gold camos just to show them off later with your friends. You party up and run into some interesting people. It may be a roasting session, someone to talk to, or someone to mess around with in matches. Don't forget that most of us love loading up on food and drinks to make for a hell of a night. And you could have a plate of life responsibilities, but you didn't care. You had the night for yourself, and it for sure wasn't going to be a boring one. Your mind was eased, free of worry. And during all this, your mind is waiting for that next Call of Duty game, and you're thinking how much you want to play it and purchase it at midnight. And the best part about all that is that you weren't alone. There was millions of people right there with you, bathing in that same experience. It seems like nostalgia, right? Well, it is. But I don't believe that because we experienced nostalgia that we are getting lost in the memories. We're experiencing nostalgia here because we lost something that we thought would never end, or at least know when it was going to slip away. When playing through the peak of COD, we never were talking about the good old days of all the other old COD games at the time because we still had new days that were full of the same experiences we cherished. It was easy to live in the moment, and it was a loop. And I don't blame anyone for wanting to be back in that, but unfortunately, it faded away and morphed into something else. Something that is becoming nothing but a letdown. A lot of us can have several different points where we claim Call of Duty took a turn for worse. A good portion may agree it was when we were introduced into the advanced movement era where we had jetpacks and jumped into the future. And although I agree that I never cared much for this era, it wasn't the decline for the series. The reason why I say that is because this was an experimental phase for the developers trying to innovate for the benefit of us, and a lot of people actually did enjoy it. And personally, there was everything I wanted in Black Ops 3 except for the campaign, and I don't regret a second I spent on that game. But there was a disconnect, and the community was heard. We moved on from that. Although a lot of us didn't like the futuristic feel, the games had the care and nurturing the games needed. Where I think that really changed was in 2018. With Black Ops 4. If you remember anything about it, the gunplay felt smooth, considerably some of the best satisfying gunplay in the series, and that's about the best it had. Priorities were shifted, and developers had their hand forced as they were pushed to cancel the campaign and move assets into an experimental battle royale mode with Blackout. Zombies was ripping out all the classics that made it fun, and the little campaign we did get resurrected fan favorite characters for fan service. It just didn't make sense. Suddenly, the game we once loved wasn't getting the same care and love that made it special. A lot of us still had hope at this time that this was just a bad one in the series, and that we would move on with the next title. Next thing you know, unfinished titles became the norm, and all they cared about was their new baby, Warzone. Something that doesn't connect well to what we fell in love with. The only real thing that remained was the gunplay. Everything else isn't special and it's just new. At least with Blackout, we had some of the most iconic maps pushed into one giant map with their battle royale. It, at the very least, brought familiar memories to our head, but Warzone failed with that and just moved on underneath the Call of Duty name. Forgotten. But as a lot of us know, Call of Duty was adapting and following in the footsteps of others. It was replicating success found in the rest of the gaming industry. At the end of the day, businesses are pushing out these games and they want to be hyper successful, racking in money. Publishers are the big bad bullies that come in telling you what to do and what must be done to get the big bucks. Their eyes aren't set on the love that goes into making a game. They look at these games as money making machines and will drain them until there's nothing left. They've always been around. The only difference now is that we cannot contain them as new methods to making this money have been discovered. Microtransactions flooded us, locking new guns behind supply drops, having us literally gamble until we got what we wanted. We pushed that into a different state where we could finally pick out what we want, but they are still sucking us dry, pushing out so many cosmetics that barely add to the game. And while the game fails in other areas, they'll make sure to hound their employees to push out cosmetics that I doubt they want to make, rather than make the game fun and fulfilling. There's nothing necessarily wrong with wanting a cool new emote or whatever it is, but with anything, we need balance. They surrounded us with influence to buy those microtransactions. It's a salesman that keeps pitching you their crappy product until you give in and accept it. Then when he finally drives away, he runs over your dog and leaves you to deal with it. Terrible analogy, I know, but what I'm getting at is that while these microtransactions can be avoidable, it's turning focus away and forgetting about the community and what we truly loved. These creations take time, so companies need to invest that time well. While we forget about most of the downsides to those older COD games, our minds are still chasing what we had, and we have every right to talk about how times are changing for the worse. It's a battle that is worth fighting for just so that we can create some of those core memories we once experienced every night. It doesn't bother me if that sounds nerdy or being stuck in the past. We're gamers. And gaming, I think, has a special place in all of our hearts. We do have to appreciate the developers trying for us and putting an effort where they can. I don't blame them for being in crappy mindsets, because they have adapted to what they were forced into. Even though COD is in a dark place and has been producing average games for a bit now, there is still hope, and we don't know everything happening behind the scenes. After all, Microsoft now bought out Activision and can turn things around in a few years. Maybe one day, COD will have a climb back to better and simpler times to enjoy with our friends. Hope remains.